Hey guys, T here. I got tagged by TableTop Terrors Tim for this kind of chain letter slash get to know you YouTube thing that's been going around called 5 RPG Facts You Didn't Know About Me. So this is 5 RPG facts, or RPG related facts about me as a person, about my history, about things that either only a few people know or nobody knows at all. And I'm supposed to tag a few people in the meantime. So I guess if I could get anybody else to do this, it would be Bluebarian, TheUselessKnight, or GiantWeebo. So you're supposed to tag 5 people, but I'm kind of antisocial on YouTube, so I don't... So I've got my little thing of notes here for a couple of things to talk about. So I guess the first thing that you probably didn't know about me is that I know very little. I went to school to be a teacher, to be a literature teacher, and one of the first things they tell you is that it's very hard to hold everything in your head. So if you don't think you can do that, you need to prepare beforehand as though you were getting ready to give a speech. And as far as like knowing the systems, I know all the basics of like 3rd edition, 3.5. I know almost all of Pathfinder. I know a little bit of HARP, but I don't keep it all up here. There's only so much space. As Sherlock might say, there's only so much space up here. I have to keep the more important things up here. So before I throw a game, I actually have to sit and make preparations as though I were writing a lesson plan for a classroom, which, if you don't know, is actually a lot more paperwork than you might imagine. It's like, well, this is what I want to happen. This is what I want my players to learn about the storyline or about the bad guy. This is what I want to accomplish. These are the few things that I want to focus on. I actually have to sit and do all that, because if I don't, and I was like, oh, I have an enemy that has an ability that causes nausea and dizziness. Well, what does nausea and dizziness do to your stats? Well, I don't know. So I'm like, oh, I'm using that monster. I better go, reread nausea and sickness, or I better write that down and have it on a cue card in front of me. I know very little. Or I commit very little to my memory because, I'm not especially bright when it comes to studying, but I can hold things for short periods of time and then let them go. In terms of like crunchy numbers and things, I'm very focused on the organic storytelling, which is why I write the story first and then try to come up with like 3 combat encounters and then build the set around it, or the dungeon or whatever. I call it a set, like I'm writing a movie. But preparation is the biggest phase for me, which is how you can come across as a better DM, as if you're ready when you sit down, 100% ready. There is not a damn thing in your module or in your game that you're going to throw that's not sitting in front of you in physical form, or sitting in front of you on your laptop. Because Lord knows I'll forget half my stuff if I don't have like a map and printouts of stat blocks of the monsters in front of me. If I don't have my dice right here and my stack of books right here with earmarks in them for stuff, I don't remember a lot of stuff. The illusion of skill comes through preparation. The second one, I guess the second RPG fact about me, is that I used to be a classic example of a World of Warcraft addict. And I don't use that word lightly. I mean, like, when I would stay in this little economy apartment when I was going to college over like the summer and stuff, I would take like 1 or 2 summer classes, because that's all that I could actually find that were relevant to my degree at the time. And I would basically get up, go to class, come home, eat, and then play WoW until bedtime. It got to the point where I got the title in World of Warcraft called The Exalted. The Exalted is where you get 60 factions, 60 factions to the status of Exalted. And Exalted means you've done all their quests, you've done all their errands, you've gone to all their dungeons, you've done all of their collection quests, and you've started doing dailies for them. Now, the average reputation bar, at least in the era that I was playing World of Warcraft, the average reputation bar for a single faction was about 6 weeks, because you could do all their quests and stuff, and then they would give you like 2 or 3 daily quests to keep grinding that XP bar, or that reputation bar up. And when it got to Exalted, you could get whatever reward, whatever thing, whatever special mount, special piece of gear, the 2 or 3 items that only the people that had devoted to this faction could have. I had 60 factions to Exalted, and that was night after night killing ogres for beads and saving dragon eggs, and taking out the dwarves' garbage and killing basilisks and bringing back the scales. Just grind quests. I would sit there with WoW windowed, and this was back when I was kind of like dating Bree, because we met on the internets before we met in real life. Would chat with Bree for hours and hours and hours while I was just doing these reputation quests in WoW, and I got up to the Exalted title, which means it would go like your name, and then under it would be your guild, but if you had the title, it would be like, Mundle the Exalted, or something like that. And that was not a title you saw very often, because 60 factions. And that kind of gave me a wake-up call after a while, because by then Mists of Pandaria had come out, and I was like, what am I doing with my life? Just like this, there was only like one title that was harder to get than that. It was called The Insane, which you had to kind of manipulate a few factions for that, but even I couldn't devote to that. But I got up to the Exalted, and I was like, God, I should go outside. And that kind of started me on the path to getting away from WoW's like grip on me. And I swear, I told myself I would never make fun of somebody for like trying to quit cigarettes or trying to quit drinking or whatever other habits that they happen to have, because I was so thoroughly addicted to WoW for a long time that was just my life. I wasn't writing, I wasn't drawing, I wasn't playing D&D, I wasn't socializing. It was kind of like a missing chunk of my life was just World of Warcraft, and the Exalted title kind of snapped me out of it. And I went to counseling for a short time. Not even my parents knew about that at the time, but there was an on-campus counselor that I had to go to and say, hey, I've got an addiction. It's not like drugs or anything. It's just a video game. And she took me very seriously. She said, okay, well, here's this process you can go through. And over time, and yeah, there were shakes, and there was sweating, and there was nervousness, because suddenly I had this huge chunk of time that I didn't know what to do with. So I learned to cook. I got better artistry skills. I started crafting modules. I started... I wrote Cyranox at that time. If you guys have seen my audio novel on my channel, Cyranox the Feared, I wrote Cyranox during that time. I just had, this sudden void in my life, and it was like combating an addiction. And I did get away. Eventually, I can't even, look at WoW. I don't really have any trigger mechanisms anymore. I don't, suddenly want to play WoW at certain times, like some people suddenly need a cigarette. But I had to go through basically like the 12-step program to stop playing Warcraft. Another RPG fact, I am very paranoid because I went to school to be a teacher, which didn't work out for me, but that's another story in and of itself. Because I went to school to be a teacher, I became increasingly paranoid of playing like D&D and stuff, especially online, with people under the age of like majority, whether that be 18 or 21 or whatever. Because again, one of the first things they teach you when you go to be a teacher is there are a million billion ways that you can get sued and things that can be misconstrued, because people are trusting you with their children. And you could be taped, you could be recorded, somebody could have a camera phone on you at exactly the wrong moment that could ruin your career forever. And if nothing else, they instilled in us the fact that yes, they're mean little bastards because they're going through puberty, and there's drama, there's anger, there's fights. Is that you have to be like the buoy, the freaking, you have to be like meditatively calm as much as you can, and say just the right thing and things like that. And that kind of translated over into my D&D stuff, where I don't have to curb myself at all. I swear, there's sex, drinking, drugs, all kinds of stuff going on, and there's still parents out there that think badly of D&D and other games like it. And when I started doing D&D stories, and I got up to the point where I was out of stories, and I started talking to people online to pull games, I was like, God, I can't play with anybody under 18, because if somebody starts having sex over here in this scene, or if people get their heads chopped off, or if there's like a cultish ritual summoning Cthulhu out of the void, and just the right soccer mom gets a hold of that, they've got me on tape. They've got me sitting in front of a camera for hours talking about these topics. There's a lawyer somewhere that'll crawl out of the woodwork to freaking grasp at whatever straws they can. And, I'm a starving artist. I don't have any money, so they could probably just wreck my life. So I kind of had to make a rule for myself that I couldn't play with anybody, at least not to run a game. Not so much playing in a game, but not to run a game, D&D, Pathfinder, whatever, with somebody who wasn't at least 18, because some of the topics that come up, and I know it's a harmless board game and stuff like that, but like I said, there's overactive helicopter parents out there, and God knows I would run into just the wrong one who would jump onto my channel and was like, you're exposing my child to all this garbage, I'm going to sue the fuck out of you, and just, my channel could get taken down, etc., etc. I'm very paranoid about children in general. Not to say that, 16, 17 are like children, because they're coming up on the age of adulthood, but just in general, there's always somebody who wants a piece of you. So I guess the fact, my third fact, is that I became, because of my training as a teacher, I became increasingly paranoid to not play with kids or like mid-level teenagers. Mostly to protect myself and my YouTube channel, however selfish that may sound. My fourth RPG fact is, despite how many RPGs I've played and adored, I don't think Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder or anything like that makes for a very good video game. I hate Neverwinter. I hate Eye of the Beholder. I hate D&D Online. I hate anything that calls itself Dungeons and Dragons in media. Like, we've never had a good movie. We've never had a good video game. We've never had, anything media-oriented that's D&D. I generally steer away from. And yeah, they make for good short things. Like, if you've seen the D&D Online Rise of Tiamat cinematic, that 2-minute like short film where they're showing Tiamat come up from fucking the abyss of hell, that looks fucking amazing, but the game is still garbage. I just, as a personal opinion, I stay away from everything D&D video game related, just because I've played Neverwinter. I hated it. I played Eye of the Beholder on Game Boy Advance. I hated it. Just anything. I like Fire Emblem, I like Final Fantasy Tactics. I love Final Fantasy Tactics, my God. If there was like a D&D chess game like that, like Final Fantasy Tactics, I would play it, or like Fire Emblem with like permadeath, but I have never come across a D&D movie or video game that I had any liking for. And yeah, you can poke fun at the D&D movie. You can poke fun at, I think there's like 4 D&D movies now. I should probably do reviews for those for my channel, because I think everybody's done a review of the first one, but there's actually like 4, 5, 6 D&D movies, and some of them aren't as bad as the others, but they're still pretty bad. But yeah, just in general, hate the games, hate the movies. The books are good. I've read tons of Forgotten Realms and freaking. I have the entire Waterdeep set. I love R.I. Salvador's Waterdeep setting and all the actors, all the writers. There's like 6 or 8 Waterdeep books. I have all of them. I've read them all. They're fantastic. That's actually the town that Ocean Rim is based off of. That's why there's a big crowded bay area, and it's sitting on the East Coast. Though I think Waterdeep is actually sitting on an island, and Ocean Rim sits on the west coast of a continent. But a lot of Ocean Rim's characteristics come from Waterdeep because I've read all of those books. And my 5th RPG fact is a personal fantasy of mine. Now, don't get ahead of me, because it's not that kind of fantasy. There is a YouTuber that I have long admired called The Gentleman Gamer, who, very handsome, like, British guy. He's always got, like, a suit and tie, sits in front of this big, like, array of nerdy books and stuff, and a lot of YouTubers that do tabletop gaming sit in front of bookcases full of nerdy stuff. And even when I was tagged by TableTop Terrors Tim, he said, this is the first time I've ever sat in front of a bookshelf full of nerdy stuff. And I was like, that's my thing too. But the Gentleman Gamer, I have this like held fantasy of playing a game of Call of Cthulhu with him. Because the first video of his I ever saw, while I was looking for like stuff that was similar to Counter Monkey, to Fistful of Dice, to Demonac, to myself, other people telling like the tales of their tabletop adventures, I came across the Gentleman Gamer, and he was talking about Call of Cthulhu, and he was embellishing how interesting the Call of Cthulhu tabletop game was. And I thought, God, and just having seen a whole bunch of his videos, how cool would it be to play Call of Cthulhu with this guy, because he has a clear grasp of what good storytelling is, and he gives like a 2-minute intro that like explains like a brief storyline of something that would happen in a Call of Cthulhu game, and I was like, God, I want to play with that guy. And he's busy, his channel is 3 times the size mine is, and he's got his own thing going on, so I don't want to bother him. But my God, that would be one of my freaking fantasies, to just as like a duet game. Even if you're gonna die, even if you're gonna go insane, just he has such a clear grasp of language and knowing what is important, what is dark, what is disturbing. Describing the Call of Cthulhu game, I was like, God, I want to play with that guy. So, and I know of so many people that run their own show. Tabletop Terrors Tim, Demonac, Fistful of Dice, Dungeon Master Johnny. I would play with GiantWeebo, but I think he lives in Japan, so we would have too much of a time difference. Knowing all these people that do similar channels to mine, freaking The Gentleman Gamer, that would be a trip. So that is my 5 facts. I tagged 3 people at the start: Bluebarian, TheUselessKnight, and GiantWeebo. If they've got 5 RPG facts that people don't know about them, those are the people that I've tagged. So I will see you guys next time. Have a good one.